Good evening, gentlemen and gentlewomen. Today I'm going to show you about a tunnel exit. A very small project, but it is a nice project, I think. A small little feature that you can place down, or a composition that you can place down within Eden. Nothing too large, and it should be completely compatible with vanilla gameplay. Although I am using a couple of mods. I'm using Ace, for example. I'm using CBA and a couple of other mods to facilitate to make this a little bit easier on my end. Um, I have made a tunnel exit, and this tunnel exit consists of 4 objects. I will show them right here. The first one is a quad bike and the well itself. Quad bike will be invisible once you start your mission file to play it on a server or anything. Its model is hidden. Its simulation is turned off, but its damage is very much turned on. Then you have the concrete well. The concrete well is what I think comes as close as possible to an actual tunnel exit, so that this is something that your players will see and be able to detonate by either air or detonation blocks. Then you also have a trigger that is located in here, and there's also a helipad invisible located in this composition. The quad bike is the thing that will trigger, or that on which the trigger will look for that is taking damage. In order for the trigger and the code to happen, the quad bike has to be fully killed. The quad bike can either be completely killed by dropping aerial bombs or by using M112 dead blocks. Maybe you can utilize a different explosion or a explosive as well instead of an M112 dead block. But it is not tested, but I think it will work. Concrete well is the thing that you blow up. The trigger well does the code, and the helipad that is invisible allows you to rotate, for example, the crater that is made afterwards. Because on flat terrain it will look just fine. However, when you get to slope terrain, inclinations and things, if you take the effective direction of the tunnel exit, that does not rotate. The helipad invisible can form to the terrain and somewhat form, but on the steepest inclinations you may still have to go in and form it yourself. So just make sure that the helipad invisible is rotated to the terrain. And how do you do that? Up here you have toggle widget coordinate space. Make sure it is solid. Make sure the vertical mode is I think acute, and that surface snapping is toggled on. And then you can basically go in and drag it all down and it will snap to the terrain, like I will show you right here. Right now it doesn't rotate to the terrain, but maybe the inclination is too steep for that to happen. So if you press space once or twice, this widget is to come up, and you gradually rotate it just to the liking of yours. Maybe drag it down a little bit further because it's floating in my case. And now when the quad bike is detonated, when the tunnel exit is detonated, the crater will appear just as this helipad is placed. So what crater am I talking about? It's not included in the composition itself, but it is created in the code. Let's grab a trigger. I have a document to the right here that I can show you to go through the code a little bit easier instead of having to scroll through this. Either way, this composition works in multiplayer. It has been tested in multiplayer and it functions. Trigger activation is set to type none. Any player can activate it, and you can be present inside of the trigger. It's also set to repeatable. Why? Well, there is a cam shake to mimic that the ground is collapsing, and that only functions when the trigger is set to repeat instead of it not repeating. In the condition field, we have set it up in such a way that I look for a quad bike inside of the trigger field, and I will look for if it is alive or not. If it is not alive, the trigger will already happen, but it also will look to if there is a player inside of the trigger list, or trigger area. This is required to add a cam shake to mimic that the ground is collapsing underneath of your feet. Otherwise, that is not added to your interface. Then on the on activation field, I first have three variables to which I will set that the concrete well is added to this tunnel exit variable. The quad bike is added to the killable variable, and the helipad empty is added to the helipad variable. Then the following code runs the cam shake for all the clients that are inside of the trigger area. If you are outside of the trigger area, that cam shake is not added to your interface. And this is again a thing to mimic. It's an effect to mimic that the ground is collapsing underneath of your feet. But if you're not close enough to that explosion, to that movement of the earth, then you're not going to feel it. So that is why it's only added for the players inside of the trigger area and not outside of it. This also means that when you're flying overhead and you happen to be inside of that area, yeah, you will get a cam shake added, but mostly nothing will happen to you. You're not, your camera won't start shaking. Then the next bunch of lines are the actual creation of the craters. I will take the position of the helipad. I take the vector direction up of the helipad, and then I create simple objects on the place of where the crater is supposed to come. I take a couple of stones and a shell crater to create this this crater, and I put it on the same direction as the helipad. I also take model to world, so I have a position relative to the helipad, and it creates them around that helipad, just so it's not all one rock in one place, but it is actually surrounded by it. And then obviously we'll set the vector direction up and such. And then lastly, I go in, or the code goes in and deletes the helipad. It deletes the tunnel exit, and it deletes the vehicle. And lastly, it also deletes the trigger to leave no traces behind, so it doesn't clutter up your interface after it has been triggered. That makes it, I think, pretty easy for you to set up. You just place it down in the mission file, and there you go. You're basically set. You don't have to do any programming. You don't have to do any code changing like you normally would do with variable names and check for a variable name to be present in the area. No, this goes in. It will look at, hey, is there a quad bike nearby inside of a 1 meter diameter of the trigger position? Is there a concrete well in the vicinity? Is there a helipad invisible in the vicinity? And if so, it puts these all into the array, and that makes you able, or that makes it able to target these things in the code. So what does it do exactly? Well, let's start to play the mission file so you can see what it does. We're on Altis, and I got a player right here. I have given the player a couple of detonation blocks and an M57 firing device from Ace. And now we are going over to where the tunnel exits are located. So as you can see, there are 3 of them, and you can still locate them quite easily in Zeus because the quad bike is there. That is how you can find them in Zeus if you want to. I've tried multiple methods of detonating the having the script run. I try to use civilians. I try to use ammo crates. I try to use mortars, UAVs, and more. And the only thing that works consistently is the quad bike. If you were to use a civilian or an AI, if you were to throw a grenade next to it, it would basically already kill the civilian, and a grenade would be able to collapse the tunnel exit. That's not what I intended to have. Then you get basically the fact that if you throw a grenade near the VR entity or the civilian, there's a chance that the civilian will fly away. And when it is not close enough anymore, if it is further than 1 meter away from the tunnel exit, from the concrete well, and it is killed, then the code will no longer run. So therefore, I've opted to go for a static object that will always be there, that won't fly away, that is not easily killed by a grenade. But the problem that I did have with, for example, an ammo box or something, if you dropped a GBU 12 on it, nothing were to happen. The only thing that worked is either a quad bike or civilian. But again, I've just told you what the cons are of using a civilian, and the pros of using a quad bike is it is large enough, it is not killable by a grenade, but it can be killed by detonation blocks, and it can be killed by aerial bombs, and that's the intended weapons for this tunnel exit. So first we go over here, and we will drop an explosive on here. I set it to my firing device, and I walk away a little bit because yeah, the explosive will most likely still injure me. The trigger area is about 50 meters in diameter, or the radius is 50 meters, I think. So if you are within that area, the camshake will be added to you, but if you are outside of the area, the camshake is not added to you. That's the shake to the camera. So the tunnel has detonated. The crater is made, the rocks appear, and there's nothing for you to add to Zeus anymore because everything is either a simple object or it has been deleted by the code. So there's no more impact on your frame rate than normally would be from Eden mission where you make things simple object or something. You can also detonate multiple. I will show you what it does when you're outside of the trigger area. Now we are far away enough for the explosion to happen. It happens, no cam shake is added because you're not close enough to feel the explosion. And again, the tunnel is detonated, the creator is made, and everything else is deleted that is no longer required. You can also do the same thing with an aircraft. I quickly will mark it so I can actually find it, make it a little bit easier to find it. Located right there. Then we will take off and we will kill this tunnel exit. Quickly do my view distance so I can actually see it as well. And hopefully we will be able to gain enough speed in order to take off and not see me hopelessly fail this takeoff, right? So we got 10 GPUs on board. I will gain a little bit of altitude and set up my laser and everything. Laser is set up. I may have to correct it in a moment, but we will gain a little bit of altitude. Just so we don't smash ourselves into the ground when we come around for the bombing run. And now we're stalling, obviously. Let's make sure the target is still laced. It is. Yet, we're not over it yet. Bomb away. Dead on strike. Let's wait for the smoke to clear, and there you see it. The crater is there, and everything else gone. So there you go. That is basically it. That is the tunnel exit. You can use this to make enemies appear from these tunnel exits and place them wherever you want them to place or to be.